Hello and welcome. We've been talking about Make in India for a while now. And during the pandemic, it believes that this particular aspect has increased a lot. To talk about it more and to understand it better, and to understand a very important part, and that is economics. Today, I'm joined with Jaya. She is the CEO of BCT Digital. She's going to tell us all about it, about herself, the company, and of course, the Make in India module. Thank you so much for speaking to NewsX.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm Jaya Vaidhyanathan.
Jaya, the first and foremost thing, as I started talking about Make in India, BCT Digital, tell us a bit about the company, and it is a Make in India module. So can you put some light on it? Because people always have this idea that Make in India is a startup idea always. But you're somebody who have had so much experience and you've taken this forward. Can you put some light on that for people to understand it better?
Sure. One of the reasons that I moved from US to India was because I was a strong advocate for moving our mindset from an IT services mindset to be a truly global innovation hub. And with that view in mind, I wanted to look at what are the products that we make in India for India.
Okay.
What happens often is, especially in the BFSI world that I'm from, a lot of products are imported and tried to make it do for our scenario. And we're quite different culturally, and our problems are also different.
Yes.
Let's take the example of the NPA issue. So we have NPAs in different countries, but they're all as a result of different sets of problems.
Okay.
You have God on one hand, which talks about willingness to pay, and then you have the ability to pay. So the willingness to pay is different from what we experience in India versus the world. So let's look at a product that we say, let's bring it out of somewhere globally and try to make it do for our problems. It doesn't work quite as well.
Yes.
So with that mindset, I wanted to design products in India for India's unique problems. And some of the products that we designed were specifically with that purpose. Let's talk about early warning system as an example. What we did from an early warning system perspective was to do an analysis of what is the result. I mean, why do NPAs arise in the first place?
Yes.
So it could be different again for different countries, right? For us, we've had an issue with projects non-started because of infrastructural or regulatory approvals, which are quite different in different regions or different countries. So let's look at that analysis differently and design products uniquely for uniquely India's problems. So that was the source of all of that.
Could you define, as you said, uniquely for Indians, for the country, a couple of those that you can tell us what they are and how do they function?
For instance, we have, I'll pick a couple of products. One was what I talked about, early warning system.
Yes.
Early warning system is supposed to give you a real-time alert of saying, you know what, let's take an example like a crisis like COVID situation.
Yes.
So there is an inordinate amount of stress in the system because of the inability to pay. So you need to treat that differently, whereas, from a regional perspective as well. And you have sectoral exposure to different sectors. Now the aviation sector is pretty much dead for the moment. And you have the real estate sector. So you have a lot of sectors under stress. So let's pick an example of diversion of funds, right? Which is a systemic problem in a lot of countries, more so in our country, right? So we ask an analysis of, is this person, a traditional way of looking at diversion of funds is to look at post-mortem data. Okay. Repeatedly, this transactions going to a particular account that looks to be a shell company. Can we look at that? Whereas if you were able to stop that before it happened, as soon as a beneficiary is set up, you could kind of set up a crawl and say, is that beneficiary in the news for the wrong reasons? Are they one of those blacklisted companies? Have they been subject to frequent management audits? Or have they taken loans from other banks and not paid? So if you can do a lot of analysis before letting that operation go through, then you could save a lot in some of these fraudulent transactions.
How many? So if I would ask, how many clients have you had, and what is kind of success rate if there is something that you can specify on?
Absolutely. Interestingly, we are present in most public sector banks. Quite a number of public sector banks have kind of deployed us. We are quite active with private sector banks, and we are also looking to expand into NBFCs and other regions as well.
Jaya, talking about you're someone who has an economic background, and you can help understand our viewers better things. How do you look at the relief packages given by the government, and how do you think they're going to help your sector?
See, we are one of those businesses that looked at it. It's an opportunity for us because from a business perspective, if you look at it, for us, we are in the business of quantification of losses. Let's say from a perspective of you're saying, if the COVID situation were to last 6 months versus 4 months or a year, what is the kind of loss that you would look at with a good degree of accuracy? We can actually tell you 86.3%, this is going to be your loss based on these parameters like supply chain disruptions, accounts receivables, accounts payable. So number of factors would go scientifically into a model and we would come up and tell you this is the kind of loss that you're looking at. So we are, if you will, an input into the system to tell you what the loss is going to be. Coming back to the question of what's the stimulus like, right? There are different components to the stimulus. Most people are disappointed with the package because there's no cash stimulus like in the West. But you need a lot more parameters. A lot of our NPAs, for instance, are as a result of non-starting infrastructure projects or lack of regulatory approvals or cash flow issues. So I think there is a good amount of stimulus in this fiscal package for indirect stimulus, which is going to take some time to reach the common man. But the fact is that they've been focusing on the right things in terms of labor, in terms of law, in terms of regulation, etc. So there's a lot in there, but patience is the key. It's not going to be something that hits you directly.
So you do see the underlining of having a benefit with this stimulus, which is a good thing. You're right. The majority of the people whom we've spoken to seem to be unhappy about it. Jaya, how do you look at your sector and in general? How do you look at the situation post-COVID? And another important thing I would like to attach the question with it is how do you advise people to sustain post-COVID? Because right now, majority, even state governments in our country are saying we need to start learning how to live with it.
Yeah. So I think every crisis is also an opportunity. It's an opportunity to restart fresh, learn, put aside your old mistakes and start fresh. And I think from the government to the common man are looking at it differently, right? So it's an opportunity to kind of press the reboot button. Let me give you an example. From a government and a RBI perspective, there are talks about the bad bank. Now, there could be a debate on saying whether that's the right thing to do or whether it's just parking a problem for later, like a quarantine condition. A quarantine condition is isolation, but either they come out of it alive or recovered, or it kind of is bad debt, right? And the question also comes on how is it different from asset recovery, right? And there are a lot of debates that's going on, and it's fundamentally quite different because the discounted rate is quite different, and how you treat the assets are quite different. So I think conceptually, you have to deep dive quite a bit to get to the bottom of it. So that's from a government perspective, there's thoughts on a fresh restart post-crisis, right? And likewise, from a common man perspective, there are opportunities in a crisis to kind of say, can I do things differently? From a common vendor on the street, you say, I'm in the business of being a vegetable vendor, but is your business being a vendor? Can you do other products? Or are you in the business of vegetables, which is essentially, can I do packaged goods, move on to doing different things?
But so
it's more of an analysis of the board.
In a situation like this, especially in the condition where people are right now, as of now, financially not stable at all, and they do not see stability coming ahead, do you think people will have the ability and the willingness to venture ahead? Because
I think you either kind of put your hands out and say, this is it for me, I don't know what to do, or you pick yourself up and move on, right? I'm not talking about those where survival is key or people who are looking at a day-to-day, how do I meet my needs? That's the bulk of population in India, and it's up to the people that are privileged enough to think of what next to do to support them. So I'm not necessarily talking about only that segment, but I'm talking about the segment that still can pick yourself up and move on, right? And we're looking at a range of stimulus, whether it's the micro SME or the SME to the large corporates. Everybody has a role to play in kind of getting that bootstrap. Obviously, government has a much larger role because of where they are, but it's also up to everybody else to contribute to that kitty to make us pick ourselves up and move on, right? So that's kind of what does a hunter do when it's winter? He sharpens his spear, and that's what we need to do as well.
So as you're saying, everybody's supposed to do their bit. I guess your bit over here is to give advice to people on financial stability after COVID and in this situation. Can you advise our viewers a bit on that? What should they do?
For me, the biggest, I'm again kind of separating out the portion of people who are looking at day-to-day survival.
Yes.
Because that is something that the entire ecosystem comes through and supports them, not only because it's the right thing to do, but also because that is much needed as core part of our entire stimulus. But I think our savings rate, if you look at it from 2010-11, has been dwindling significantly year on year. And we are at like 30% right now. We started at 40 plus. So it is something that we need to seriously pay attention to moving on, right? Because when the going is good, we didn't save enough. And that is something I'm talking as a country, I'm talking as, a corporate, I'm talking as somebody that's more on the larger basis of what we have let ourselves be in. But some of that also goes into growth, some of that goes into economics as well. So I think the tip I would talk about is to more stay focused on surviving the moment, but also keenly look for opportunities and look at how do you bootstrap that and move onwards. And if you look at the market as such, when it's down, it's time to buy, like Warren Buffett philosophy, right?
Yes.
When it hits rock bottom, that's when you buy, not when it's up. When everybody else is doing something like selling, keep buying. And that's when you have the maximum growth moving on.
Okay, if you keep buying, how are we going to start saving? Vic, I want to take your take on saving. How do you look at what should people's take be on saving, especially during the pandemic and actually after it? People are needed to have a different thought process when they're trying to think of finances now.
Yeah, so when I said, I didn't say spend. Yes. I said buy in different sectors. So I'm saying, I'm looking at even equity market or a debt market as a saving. Okay. I do not think of that as a spend. So it depends on different classifications of what your savings are. Traditionally, when the markets were down, people bought gold. Now gold is overpriced, so people are looking at different types of it. Yes. It's a good thing if you have extra savings to put that into certain other sectors, right? So unless you're looking at new opportunities, you don't have the ability to save. So be where you are, continuously look at opportunities to be more efficient, innovate more, think different. I mean, it was always make in India first, and it's up to us to make India reboot and off to a new start. I've always been vocal about global. So I mean, like vocal about local and then take it global. So I think that's something that we need to keep innovating, and we need to bring that progress. Let's look at India as a start, whole country, right? There are opportunities where without naming countries, people don't want to invest anymore and look at diversification. That's a great opportunity for India to kind of capitalize and say, what more can I do now?
That is going to be my last question to you, is where we started Make in India. Now this seems to be the opportunity of doing things are large. The government is supporting a lot, taking from small aspects as the application that we're using right now. The government has a offer of 20 lakh of rupees for people to start making homegrown applications and a lot of homegrown. So your advice to people from a person who has had her experience in the corporate sector and had a Make in India module, your one piece of advice to people who are trying to think to start to do something for Make in India, yet not able to decide.
I think when the going gets tough, the tough get going. I think go with that philosophy. The road is not easy, but it's worth it at the end. So it's more about having that staying power and believing in what you aspire or dream on. So once you have that dream and you say, I'm going to do it differently, the road, you just have doors open for you. And wherever that's needed, happy to kind of, as people who are in the corporate and have gone through this journey, happy to mentor people that are on this road, right? So that's what we would kind of say as contributors to this growth of Make in India.
Jaya, thank you so much for speaking to NewsX, and your thoughts and your advice are very, very to the point and absolutely correct. And it's great to hear from people like you who are out there wanting to mentor people and not keep their knowledge just to themselves, because it is important to impart knowledge. Thank you so much. All the very best, and take care and stay safe.
Thank you. Same to you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.